Hey Cronies, Johnny Gray here with yet another episode of CrohnsCast. What is going on? Welcome to the new headquarters in the garage because all the kids are home and it's far too noisy in the house to do any form of recording. It's been a real struggle lately, obviously, with all of the issues going on in the world, but this is my solution to try and help myself muddle through it all. Without further ado, today's episode is with HappyCrohns. So HappyCrohns is on Instagram, link will come in below. And she spends her time basically trying to confront the IBD disease and try and do it with a bit of humour. So if you don't follow her already, hit her up on Instagram, give her a follow, and I'm sure she'll cheer you up. Before we get stuck into the episode, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that little bell icon. That way you'll get updated every time that we upload. So let's hit that intro and get into today's episode. Amy, do you want to just introduce yourself to give the guys a little bit of information about who you are for people tuning into this episode?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Amy, as you've just found out. I'm 30. Ugh, gross. I was diagnosed with Crohn's in 2016 while I was traveling in Australia, so that was fun.
Could you just lead me through your life prior to being diagnosed with Crohn's? Like, what sort of stuff were you up to? What stage in your life were you at?
So I was about 26. I was full-time employed. Before I went traveling, full-time employed as a graphic designer. Went to the gym all the time. I was slimmer. Just healthy, generally happy. Quite energetic and all that sort of just normal 26-year-old. Then we went traveling, which was really amazing. And 6 months in, that's when I got diagnosed. So, but yeah, before that, my life was great, really. I could do whatever I wanted. I had a good job that I enjoyed, good friends, good family, and all that sort of stuff. So I still have that stuff, but it's just been completely flipped upside down since then. So.
What age were you when you went to Australia?
I think I was 26.
So was that just after finishing uni, or was that a couple of years after uni?
No, so I finished uni 22, I think. Mm-hmm. I don't know, it seems like so long ago. It's nearly a decade now, actually, so it must have been 21.
It seems like the most important part of your life at the time, doesn't it? And then all of a sudden, fast forward into your 30s, and it seems like literally turned into a lifetime ago.
Yeah, you're like, uni, God.
If you would like to just talk us through your diagnosis, so how did you end up in Australia? What sort of stuff was going on your travels? And what sort of things were happening that made you realise this isn't right?
Well, we had been travelling for about 6 months. We went to, it's really weird because I was fine. I was absolutely fine. We went to a farm for a week and we had to do farm work for 3 months to get our second year visas. So we were like, okay, we'll go to this farm. And it was a proper cattle farm. It was it was awful. My boyfriend was having to get all these cows reared. And I was just crying, oh God, I don't want to be here. And then 2 days in, they put us into this shed, which is where we lived. And it was actually quite a nice little house type shed. But it was they had 5,000 acres and it was literally just in the middle of nowhere and it was pitch black. And the woman that lived there was like, oh, don't worry about the murderer that comes around at night, joking. And I was like, I can't do this.
Oh my God.
So, I know. So we ended up leaving and we saw this thing. We were sort of blinded really by the beauty. We saw this place up in Early Beach and the Whitsundays area. And they said that they can pay us and that would go towards working there
so this is where the farm was it?
No, this was while we were on the farm. We saw this advert for this work that we could do, which would count towards our 2-year visa. So we were yes, that's beautiful, we'll do that, we'll get out the farm, blah blah. So we went up there, but it turns out he actually had lied to us basically, and he wasn't going to pay us. And yeah, okay, it was a beautiful area, but he was absolutely horrible. The environment there, we left this really Like by the end of the week of the farm, we actually loved it. And we left this really amazing family on the farm to go to this Whitsundays place. And he was absolutely horrible. Like he was so horrible.
And you remember
And I think
as well is like paradise, isn't it?
yeah. So like it was paradise to a point when you weren't working, especially working for him. But he was just so horrible, and his wife, they hated each other, to be fair, I think. And it was just a really horrible environment, to the point that I think that actually triggered some kind of something in my body, like the stress of him. Like he was so horrible all the time, and he like threw a cat, he'd like pee on chickens and shoot things and like animals in the garden. He threw his cat into a swimming pool. It was just horrible. And like to the point where I actually reported him to RSPCA, and like I was having like this shouting match with him and things like that, like all the time. And I was just like,
nightmare.
Yeah, it really was. And it was like starting to like obviously affect me emotionally. And I think there was I don't know if I always had Crohn's disease, I'm not sure, but it just never been triggered before. But like they do say stress can like bring it on. So yeah, and I just started getting this really like horrific stomach pain, and it was just there constantly. And everyone was like, oh, well, what did you eat? And I was like, well, I had a cheese and onion sandwich with like a whole onion in. So I was like, well, maybe that's why. But it just kept going. This pain was like literally crippling for about 3 weeks, to the point where I was like doubled over every day. I couldn't even work. I couldn't clean the showers because we were in a hotel. I couldn't do anything. And I just cried. And I was calling my sister, who's a nurse, and I was like Skyping her and my mum. And they were constantly like, oh my God, go to a doctor. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I can afford it, because I didn't know that they'd actually give me free medical assistance over there.
I didn't know that either, actually.
Well, I got like a Medicare card when we first got there, which actually was really good. Like, so if you didn't have Medicare, I think it would have potentially cost more, but it was really good. But yeah, and eventually I went to the doctors, and she just gave me some tablets for IBS. And I was like, no, I've had IBS. Like, I have IBS, whatever. This is not it. Like, I know my body after 3 weeks. I was like, I know that there's something wrong. So I ended up going to hospital, because I was like, I can't just sit here and do nothing. I was being sick, and I was just in so much pain. So I went to the hospital, because they're such tiny little towns. Everything was shut apart from like the main reception. And she was like, oh, we'll give you an ultrasound, but it'll have to be tomorrow. So go home, come back, blah, blah. So I went home, came back, had an ultrasound, and he was like, oh, and he was like, this is his little stick. He was like, that's not supposed to be there. And I was like, brilliant. I didn't know what wasn't supposed to be there. Well, that's all I'm hearing. And I'm like, oh, great. So then he was like, right, I think it's either your appendix is about to burst, literally, or it's inflammation. And I was like, right. I didn't know what inflammation even meant. So I was like, right. So and then they gave me a CT scan, and that was like, oh, you've got abscesses, and they could burst any minute and you could die. So you've got to go to hospital and pack like 2 days of clothes and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh my God. So went to the hospital. Eventually, they then, every time they kept coming up to me, I was there for a week in the end, in the hospital as well. And then every time they come up to me, I was like, hi. And they were like, oh, this is Amy. She's a lot sicker than she looks. And I'm like, am I? Like, they just weren't telling me anything. Like, they kept saying, well, it looks like it's Crohn's. It looks like this. But like, they never actually said. It was like months later, like when I had my doctor's appointment, and the actual, like, I knew it was Crohn's disease because they kept saying it looks like it. But I was like, well, can someone actually tell me if it is exactly that, or if it just looks like that? And they were like, oh yeah, it is. I was like, oh, okay, great, thanks. I'll now go on with my day. But the whole thing. I didn't have appendicitis. They gave me a drip which took away the abscesses if there ever were any. I'm not really sure. They did MRI scans.
So how long were you in hospital for?
Just 7 days.
Okay. Oh well, that's
yeah, it wasn't awful. Yeah, I mean, it was long enough because I wasn't with any of my family. I just had my boyfriend there, like sleeping in the car. So it was hard on both of us, really. And I didn't know. I was like, am I going to die? And this doctor was like, I don't know. I was like, great, thanks for that. So it was actually a really hard time, but it was not. It was nice that they were being so nice. I think they knew that obviously I was scared, like you would be, but also being away from home and everything. So there were some nurses that were really nice. But I think as well, like they were just like, oh yeah, you got Crohn's disease, and just sort of left me to it. And I was like, I don't know what this is like, but it was fine.
What happened in the immediate aftermath? Like after hospital, what ended up happening then?
Well, I got out on the Friday, and I went snorkeling on the Sunday. I went on a boat trip because I'd spent $800 on it, and I was like, I can't waste that money. And they were like, I don't recommend you do it, but I did it anyway. But I just wasn't allowed to dive, so that's fine. I was in pain, and I was on steroids and everything as well. And then eventually we had to move down to Brisbane because that's where like the biggest hospital was for me, and that's where the IBD team and everything was. So we had to move there, and we basically just stayed there for about a year and just kept going to hospital appointments and stuff.
Oh, so you ended up staying in Australia for the whole first year of your treatment?
Yeah. I mean, we did do some trips out like for a month in New Zealand and things like that, and then come back. But I had to work it around like when my next appointment was and when it would cross over with when our second visa started and our last one ended. So like we could, because you have to leave the country and then enter it again to get to start your second visa. So we ended up trying.
You have to leave it for 30 days or something, is it, for the visa to be able to?
I'm not sure if it's 30 days. I don't really know, but we did it for a month, and then we came back. So it just sort of coincided quite nicely. But yeah, we had to live in Brisbane and just work it all around my Crohn's then, because it wasn't going to be that, but that's just what happened. And it worked out nicely.
Did you have to get employed whilst you were in Brisbane?
Yeah. So Alex my boyfriend, he had a construction job. He did quite a lot of like removals and just heavy lifting and labouring and like construction work. And then he got a really good job actually, which was with a call centre. And I also got the same job, but I thought it sounds too good to be true. So I was like, you take it, I'll take this other one, which was like a shop assistant job. Because I thought if it is too good to be true, then at least one of us, aka me, will be working and getting proper money. Anyway, it turns out his job wasn't too good to be true and it was actually just really great. So he was getting like loads of money, and then my job went to part-time, which was annoying but also good because I was in pain like constantly anyway. But then after New Zealand we got back and we both worked at this really good call centre. So we ended up staying there full time for about 5 months, saving up about 25 grand I think we saved up in the end. Wow. In 5 months. It was mental.
I think that's the first time I've heard of someone backpacking in Australia and coming back with more money than they left with.
Oh yeah, well we didn't come back with it. We spent it all in Asia. But still, it was so easy to save up that money, which is insane.
So how did you find balancing the jobs with having to go and see the doctors and stuff?
It wasn't too bad. Most of the time, if I did have an appointment, it was only like a 15-minute train ride. So I'd just come in late or something. I'd be able to work it out quite easily. I don't think I had any like procedures or anything while I was there. So I had some colonoscopies and those lovely things. And I had a couple of those and a couple of MRI scans, but I'm not sure if they were while I was there or they might have been like before New Zealand and stuff, which then would have been when I was working part-time. So it wasn't too bad.
So did you find it a struggle sort of emotionally or anything, being so far from family and sport and only having your boyfriend there, or was it all made better because you had at least somebody?
It was hard. I think it was hard because I felt bad for him as well. Like it was only us two and I was literally just leaning on him. Like he was my support. And then it all just sort of, I mean, obviously it was tough being away from friends and family, but they were constantly on Skype. My mum was going to fly over, and I was like, no, like I'm out of hospital now, it's fine. It was a bit like, oh, I don't know whether to come home or not. But I thought, well, with the doctors, they wanted me to stay in Australia because they said it'd be easier for them to fix me, you know, like get me back on track a little bit and with a plan before I then went home to England and I had to deal with the NHS and stuff. They could actually formulate a plan for me. So that sort of helped the decision, really. So I was like, right, okay, we'll stay here. And I'm glad we did. But yeah, it was hard because I think I felt guilt towards Alex as well, like, oh, sorry, it's my fault that you can't have fun because you're in the hospital with me, or oh, sorry, I'm crying every day when you get home from work, or, you know. And then there was other things that came along with it as well, like I was on I've forgotten the name of the drug, but it's just one tablet a day. What's that? I can't remember. Yes, I think it was that one. So they put me on that. And then that started giving me cervical cancer, like abnormalities and stuff. So when I went for a smear test, and the doctor told me that I had these, she was like, right, well, this is cancer and this is you. And I was like, great, thanks for that. And so when I got home, Alex had already gone to work, and I just remember crying my eyes out, like, oh, what else is going to happen, like, while I'm, you know, like the other side of the world. But luckily that was okay. They took me off it straight away, put me on Humira, and then from then on I started to manage it quite nicely.
Do you notice any side effects or anything other than getting cancer from mesalazine? How did
yeah. No, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not sure if, like, I'm always very tired, but I'm not sure if that's the medication or if it's just the Crohn's disease in general, or, you know, I don't know what that is, but I don't really get many side effects, I don't think. I'm quite lucky, actually.
How has life changed since getting your diagnosis of Crohn's? So obviously we went through a vast process of elongated treatment in Australia, which some might think is quite a luxurious way to get diagnosed.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, how has life changed? So returning back to the UK and following your life now as a person with Crohn's disease?
It's completely flipped upside down, to be honest. You know, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, life's great, or I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, life's awful, because it's not. It's very normal for me. I am, like I said, I'm quite lucky. Like, I haven't got side effects particularly. I haven't got surgery. I haven't had surgery or anything like that. I am very, like, lucky. But what I've struggled with is depression and anxiety. I've put on weight, like, well, I'll probably hide my chin. I've put on so much weight, which I sort of blamed my Crohn's. Oh, it's Crohn's and the steroids, blah, blah, blah. And it was to a point, but also the depression, I would just eat things to make myself feel better. And then now it's got to a point where I'm like, come on, Amy, you can't blame that. You can't blame all of this. Like, look, you go on Instagram and there's, you know, people like yourself as well that are like so fit and doing like exercise and stuff all the time, and you're like, oh, that just went weird.
Yeah, let's come back on now.
Yeah, so like I'm like, well, if they can do it, I can do it, and now I just have to basically just step up and do it myself. But yeah, the depression has been probably the hardest thing. Mm-hmm. And I didn't realise that the fatigue that comes with chronic illnesses as well. So that's something that I've really had to deal with. I don't work full time anymore. I've tried, but I literally can't. I don't know what it is. I'm just so tired. I'm ill all the time because my injections lowers my immune system. So I've constantly got cold. I'm constantly exhausted. I still I love my job, so I do work. I've got a part-time job that I'm about to start actually, and I've got my freelance business as well, which is quite cool. So I'm trying to like make the best of this situation now. Like, okay, well, I can work part-time. I can also work for myself. So I will be essentially working full-time, but I think I've learned, because my life's all like flipped upside down, I've got to put it together. But I'm trying to put it together how I actually really want it to be now, mm-hmm. rather than, oh yeah, I'm just going to work full time, blah, blah. Because traveling as well made me not want to just sit in an office. And there is like an anxiety to having Crohn's. Yeah. But there is an anxiety to having Crohn's that I've noticed as well. Like going to work, like, oh, what about the toilet? What's the toilet situation like? And what's this? And, you know, so if you can do it from home, or if you can work part-time, there's things like that just take off a little bit of pressure, which I've thought, well, why can't I do that? And why can't I now build my life the way I want it to be? So.
Totally. And did you notice, were you anxious before, and it's been magnified more recently, or has it been something that came as a surprise whenever you had to start dealing with the limitations that you do have to consider where the toilet is and what happens if there's an embarrassing situation?
I don't think I was ever anxious before. If I was, I never noticed it. Like I said, before Crohn's, I was like this happy and healthy person. Although I do think there's past trauma in me that I won't go into now, but there is past trauma, which while dealing with my depression since Crohn's, it actually has turned out that it was always there, stemmed from when I was a child and things like that. Mm-hmm. And maybe that might be an underlining reason to why I got the Crohn, you know, like stress in your body for like 20 years. But it was only, even though I had this trauma and stuff inside me for so long, it was only when I got the Crohn's that I think my body was just like, no, I can't hold it in anymore. You're just going to have everything now. You're going to have this, you're going to have that, you're going to have it all. But I think it's like, you know, I think you've got to hit like a bit of bottom to then build yourself back up anyway. So I'm not going to say I'm grateful for it, but
I see it all the time in an MSKI, sort of like a multimusculoskeletal type of framework, where you'll find people that have never been injured will get a small injury that takes them out for a few weeks, and all of a sudden the whole thing just unravels, and all these knocks and weird things that, because they've been globally strong, have been able to carry, and then all of a sudden they've got globally weak, and all of these fractures have suddenly have appeared in the whole scheme of things. So it makes sense for it to happen, I guess, in both an emotional and psychological scale as well. With your depression, have you found ways with which to manage it? Is there triggers or things that you need or are aware of?
Yes. I mean, I'm on antidepressants now, which was always a bit like, it's like a taboo, isn't it? But I know loads of people that want to, so I'm like, oh yeah, join the club. But they have helped. The NHS have been amazing physically and mentally for everything. I just try and do things that boost me. Like, I know that working part-time in an office is going to be better for me than full-time. So like, there's just things I'm trying to learn about myself and just give myself a break sometimes as well. Like, I try and not be stuck in the house, which is hard when I'm working from home at the moment anyway. But I try and at least go out for a walk or something. Sometimes I feel like I'm getting like this funky mood coming on. I'm like, right, I need to go for a walk, because I'll be able to like shake it off, like exercising or cleaning the house, all those kind of things, just gets you out of your head a little bit. So I have found that. Triggers, I avoid some of my family, but that's not an option for everyone. But yeah, I think when I do start to feel like, I call it a funk, oh, I'm in a funk. It's like in my head. And I just think, no, I need to go for a walk or something and just sort of like sweat it out, or not even sweat, but like just get fresh air and just think about something else, or read, or do something that you enjoy. I think that's always a good thing.
How did you actually discover that you were depressed, so to speak? Because I know some people actually could potentially just be sat there and not realize maybe that they're unwell and they are suffering from depression. So I don't know if you'd be able to tell us in your own words, like what was going on at the time and how you ended up with someone actually realizing that you were depressed and getting the appropriate help that you needed.
Yeah, well, it was when we were in Australia. It was after I'd been diagnosed, and I hadn't noticed it until one day I was dancing around the kitchen. I was cleaning it, and I was dancing, and I was like, and it was like suddenly this veil of darkness just sort of lifted, and I was like, oh, I didn't even know it was there. Like, and that's when I started realizing, like, oh, maybe I had depression or something, and it's gone. I just thought, oh, it's gone now. Yeah, you're lovely. But it hadn't gone at all, and I don't think mine will ever go. I think it's always going to be like something I just have to work on and live with. But we went to New Zealand, and we went swimming with dolphins. It was supposed to be like the most amazing thing, and I was literally just sitting there like, and I was like, why am I not enjoying this? Like, I didn't get the joy from things that I should and would have normally got. And then I got home, and I put it down to like holiday blues, like, oh, I was traveling and I was living with my boyfriend, and now I'm living with my parents, and I'm not traveling, I'll get a job. And I just thought it was that. And then eventually I just kept putting it off, but I was crying all the time. I was just sad. I was shouting at my mum. Like, I was having arguments with people that I don't normally argue with. And I was just really not feeling nice. So I went to the doctor, and I said, I don't know if I need tablets or anything. I don't particularly want tablets. I don't want the, but they were like, oh, I think you should. And you have depression and anxiety. And they sent me to CBT, the cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah.
They sent me to that, and then they said, oh, I think you need counselling. So they sent me to counselling. They gave me like a confidence coach, and I had a mental health nurse. It was crazy. There were so many different people that were like, yeah, we'll help you. And I was like, oh. And I was just, whether I needed it or not, I was just taking it, because I was like, I want help. I don't want to feel like this anymore. And it has been a long road. It was like, August 2018, I think. So it's been about 2 years. And finally now I actually feel really good, and like now I'm like, yeah, I want to lose weight, and I want to do this, and I want to do that, and I'm really excited for my business and blah, blah, blah. Whereas before I'd be like, don't really care. So,
and look, I'm really interested. So looking back, you mentioned that you had an awareness of, why am I not able to enjoy this? So like being with the dolphins, and meant to be a memorable thing, and did it feel like an out of body experience, or what was going on that made you sort of realize, like, because like sometimes we can all be in a bad mood, and that's not, I don't want people to think that that's what depression is, because it's definitely not.
Yeah.
But you can be in a bad mood, and you be in a situation where you should be enjoying this, you're like, screw everybody, I'm in a bad mood, and that's it. Do you know what I mean? And you rationalize it as you're in a bad mood, but you were able to sit there and go, I should be enjoying this, but I'm not able to. I'm just curious as to how that felt and how that came about.
Well, I'm not sure if it's since, as I've sort of grown and learnt more about my head, I'm not sure if I'm now saying, oh, well, I wasn't enjoying it like I could, because at the time I might have been like, oh, wow, those dolphins are really nice, yeah, and be like, yeah, I was enjoying it. But actually, no, I wasn't. Like, I knew it was freezing cold as well. Like, I could have put it down to a lot of things, but now obviously I know that I was depressed that whole time. There was also other things, like we went to Japan, and there was pictures, and I was like, me and my boyfriend had an argument, because it was like this is what I described it when I got home to everyone when I actually went to the doctors. It was like a black worm, like in my forehead, like in my brain. And it was like paralyzing. Like sometimes I couldn't do anything. I would just sort of be paralyzed into this like tightening grip of darkness. It was so weird, and I can't really describe. Like, my hairdresser was like, what does it feel like? I've never had anything like that. And I sort of explained this. I was like, do you know what I mean? She was like, no. So it was really weird. And that's now how I can say it. It's like a tense, for me, it was like a really tense, like black headache kind of thing. And when I thought back to like the dolphins and the argument at the Japanese tower thing, I'm obviously good with my culture, the Japanese tower thing, Tokyo Tower, like that was always there.
Yeah.
And I think like now I know it's not with me now. So I know the difference, and I can now tell. So it's really weird. But I think if anyone is feeling like just not themselves, just, go talk it out or go to a doctor or something like.
Yeah. No, definitely. And I think that's something could be doing with being more prevalent and forward in people's minds, is actually in this day and age, just having a conversation can stave off a lot of future hurt. Like I've found that just chatting about issues I have with being a dad and stuff like that to just my wife helps me feel normal. Just socializing with other parents makes you realize that actually you haven't got the worst kids in the world. So
yeah, like they're all that awful.
It's that awareness sometimes, I think, that we all have problems in our lives, and sometimes the dwelling on the problem and the holding on to the problem and thinking it's only your problem can make it manifest into something more serious. And what I've found personally is actually whenever I go out and talk with other people, like with Crohn's and Colitis and other versions of IBD, that you're not alone, and actually a lot of the things are quite similar, and just having that understanding that you're not the only one. Sometimes it's such a weight to be lifted out of your mind that it can just
definitely
create a lot of stresses. One of the big questions: what has having Crohn's taught you about yourself?
Oh God. It has taught me that I'm stronger than I think I am or thought I was or whatever. Even things such as, like, it sounds silly, but having to do like your colonoscopy prep. Oh, that pickle axe and all that sort of stuff. It's horrific. And I had to do one last November or something. So it's quite recent. And I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was gagging for about 6 hours just because it was just gross. And I was washing it down with some Pepsi. And I was like, oh, that doesn't even taste nice. It was just ruining everything. And I was like, oh, and I was actually crying one point, I can't do it.
It's amazing, isn't it? It's the most unique flavor that I don't understand. It's like someone sat there in a lab and went, how can I make someone feel like they're drinking something that is actually worse than drinking shit?
Yeah, I think I would prefer just the colonoscopy is fine compared to that. Oh, that's the worst bit, I think. And I was just sitting there and I was like, I can't do it. But I was like, well, and sometimes it does get to a point where you're like, this is the rest of my life. This is what my life is. But I did it. Mm-hmm. And then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I did it. I can do that. And it's just loads of little things. Obviously I went through traveling all of Asia with my Humira injections in a little pouch. And you are stronger than, I am stronger than I thought I was. And even when the depression and everything, I've gone through some proper hard times. But that's it, I've gone through them. And now I'm not saying there's not going to be tough times in the future. There will be, hopefully not as many. But, I will get through them. And I've got a really good support system now as well, which I've learned. So it's not taught me something about myself as such, but I have learned that talking to your friends, your family, and just, I think, being honest as well with yourself and them. That's taught me a lot, because I'm like, okay, I'm not by myself. So I'll talk about diarrhea and all sorts to my friends now, and they're just like, oh, it's Amy, yeah. I'm like, yeah, me. So I'm just being honest, really.
Yeah.
And clearing out my head and trying to just teach myself, okay, well, this is my new way of life, and let's make it a good one. So
I think that's really important things to have learned and figured out that, I think a lot of people discredit themselves and how strong they can actually be. And sometimes just going through these processes does just show, when you're able to take that step back and look at the journey you've had and to have come through it and be the person that you are, it does show just how strong you are.
Yeah, definitely. And I think as well, I think you've got to teach yourself as well that putting yourself first doesn't always mean that you're being selfish either, which I think is a very an important thing to learn, because I've had to put myself first instead of money or something, which obviously then puts pressure on us for the bills, and then then can then put pressure on my boyfriend and things like that. And I'm constantly like, oh, I'm so sorry, but it's not my fault, so that's another thing. I just come into terms with everything and just learning to do this bit of your life now, that instead of what you've been sort of drilled into from like a young age, like you have to work full time and you have to do this and you have to do that. Well, actually, no, just listen to your body and do what you have to do.
Acceptance piece, isn't it? And making room for the decisions that you have to make, and understanding that was a necessity. It wasn't necessarily a choice, but even at that, it's being happy with the choices that you're making, I think is really important. And definitely. We can all beat ourselves up about that a lot. Coming away from that, what would be so for those that are newly diagnosed, what would your advice be to those?
Instagram. Like literally, it's so good. Not even just Instagram, but like research. Try not to panic, it'll be okay, but research like what treatment's available to you, what you think would be best for you, or I don't know, just everything. I think joining communities on social media has been the best thing. Like when I started HappyCrohns, like I was just on a mattress in Brisbane. I mean, I was in a flat, I wasn't just on the street, but I was on a mattress. Yeah, I was just on a mattress because we didn't have a bed frame. And I was just like, all right, I'm gonna start documenting my journey. It was more for me, obviously, to be like, right, what's actually happening with my body? But it was so good. Like everyone is so supportive. And if you're ever scared, because there's quite often times that I do get scared, or I was scared, because I'd go on Instagram and I'd see like, oh, well, by the time, if you've got Crohn's disease and the statistics of you having to have a bag or dying or this, that and the other, and I was like, oh my gosh, like it was really scary at times. And loads of other people were like, don't be scared, like everyone's in the same boat. And or they'll have like these most horrific stories, but they're absolutely fine and they've got a brilliant life, and you're just like, oh, okay. And it's just people just soothe you, and there's just so much conversation going on about how to live a great life with it. Or if you're really sad, there's people there to pick you up, and it's just really nice. And that's probably one of the best things that's come out of this. It's a community that I'm sort of a part of now, which is really good. And I think for newly diagnosed people to have other people there that you can talk to and be honest, because like you said before, like we talk about such personal things on our Instagrams. Like I said, like my depression and stuff is one of the things I do talk about more on. I never talk about it on my personal Instagram or Facebook or anything like that. It's only my Crohn's disease page that I actually talk about it, because that's where I feel comfortable, because I know that there's so many people going through similar things. And I think for newly diagnosed people, that's literally one of the best things they could do. And there's some really good memes on there, so that'll be good for them as well.
Who was your first IBD follow?
Oh, I'm not really sure. It might have been
who do you interact most with then, sort of from that community? Who's your social media Crohn's bestie?
I do really like following Curvy Crony. I think that's her name. I think she's just an older lady, and I don't want to say older lady. She might only be like 40, which is only like 10 years older than me. But she's just a lady, and she just puts on some stuff about her day, and it's not necessarily like the most extravagant or the most interesting as such, but it's just a very normal thing. And if she's having a bad time, or she'll put it on there, and you're like, yeah, I get that. And then like, so I quite like her. And there's Inflammation Queen. She's quite a big name that I see on there quite a lot. But to be honest, I haven't been on there that much lately. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Well, you've been
I don't
busy.
know if it's good, because I'm starting my own little business empire. So I've been more on my other things, but there are so many people on there that I really love. I do follow quite a lot of like self-love kind of and self-care kind of profiles as well. They're all on like that account, which is really nice. So if you are having a bad day, just see these little cartoons of like and little nice quotes to pick you up.
I think, there's so many options as well within the community. I mean, like the people that I follow, like Ant Andrews and JP Greenlee and things like that, they're all doing very different things with their lives. And it's sort of like, if you're unsure about something, there's generally somebody out there that's doing it with either a J pouch or an ostomy or with having Crohn's or some form of IBD. And it almost gives you, or feels like it gives you permission to do that yourself, and insight into how they're managing it as well, which I find is really useful.
Yeah, that is really good. And what I find as well is, I mean, I don't know if this is the right thing to feel. It's probably something I probably shouldn't feel. But when I see people with a pouch or they're going through really horrific surgery and stuff, and then I do sometimes feel guilt that I don't have that as well, because I'm like, oh, well, I'm not like that. How can I be sitting here complaining about my Crohn's disease when actually I just go to the toilet more times than I just go to the toilet more times than the normal person, or I just have some stomach pains, or I just have to go have an MRI scan every few months, or I just have to have blood tests every 3 months. Like, to other people, what I have is probably awful. Like, oh my God, she has to go to blood tests every 3 months, blah, blah. But there is sometimes that, like, looking at other people with all they're worse off than you. It's not like a guilt, but like there's always other people worse off than you. So sometimes if you are in a bad way and you see other people that are doing it so much better as well, and they're in a whole lot worse situation, sometimes that can be a bit like a motivation, like, well, come on, Amy, look what they're doing. They've just climbed a mountain and they've been in hospital with several surgeries, they've done this, they've done that, and you just have to go to the toilet, so get up and climb that mountain as well. Like,
I think
I don't know if that's the right thing.
A bit of perspective.
Because
we all have our hardships and we all have our bad days and our good days, and all of our own journeys are important and difficult in their own rights. But sometimes it can give you a kick up the bum. But also, like, be mindful that we do still, even though we're talking about IBD, we do have a tendency to put our best lives on social media sometimes.
Yeah.
So there's that mindfulness to know that, even though it's all rosy pictures, that we all struggle, we all have our own struggles, and sometimes they may not be as present on our social media platforms as we think they are. So don't worry too much if someone's just done Everest, having just had their third resection of their J pouch.
Well, that's another thing I was going to say for newly diagnosed people. Like, try not to compare yourself to other people so much, like, and try not to get frustrated when people without Crohn's or colitis or anything say, or any chronic illness, say, well, have you tried this? Have you tried that? Well, I've heard olive oil is really good for your bowel. And I'm like, olive oil is not going to cure me, but thank you. Like, you know, and after a while, like, I know that people try to help and stuff, but if you're newly diagnosed, like, it might be like, oh my God, like really stressful trying to have everyone trying to like save you as such. So, try not to compare yourself to others. Just be easy with yourself and join some nice communities instead of
I think
superhero.
Some like the helpful advice and the well meant, not necessarily well placed advice. That's going to be a constant throughout the rest of your life, as long as you've got IBD, which pretty much is going to be the rest of your life. It's going to happen. You're going to get it. Yeah. And the best thing is that even when you've turned old and grey, and if you've had kids, well, they'll be telling you when you're a grandparent, oh, well, you could. You know, it's just, and sometimes it's not very helpful. Other times it's like, oh, I wasn't well at the weekend. I had to go to the toilet X amount of times. It's kind of like you, isn't it? You're like,
Yeah. You're like, oh, I'm like you. And you're like, oh, yeah. Well, my sister, she's a carer, or she was a carer at one point. And when they told me that my Crohn's was getting worse and I'd need they were thinking about surgery and giving me a bag and things like that, I was crying because obviously I was devastated. But she was, oh, it's okay. She was like, there's old people in my care home, they love it, you know, they can like take it off and they can do this and they can do that and blah blah blah. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm 27, I don't want, or 28, whatever, I don't want to be able to. She was like, oh, you can just press this and like poop comes flying out and it's hilarious. And I was like, I don't want poop to be flying out of my stomach, like at 28. And I was like crying my eyes out. I was like, that's not helpful. But she thought, like, because they enjoyed it at 60, 70, 80, they're like, oh yeah, Amy, you could do that. I don't want to do that.
It's a really scary prospect as well if you're at that point with your disease, that's a realistic option and you've never heard of it before.
Yeah.
A big adaptation. I actually weirdly missed mine a little bit. I feel like it was a really good talking point. Like I always had something to talk about, and looking back, it was like kind of a bit convenient as well, because like you could just, to go to number 2 was almost the equivalent of what a man can do for just number 1. So like,
yeah. Oh my gosh! So I could be like, oh, I know what it feels like now.
Yeah. You are about to start a new job, and you tend to work from home because of the impacts of having Crohn's disease. Would you mind letting the guys know? So, how did you end up becoming a graphics designer, and what does that entail for you, and how does it fit with your life now?
I always liked drawing. I always liked art. I was always good at art as well. So I was like, my best GCSEs and stuff were like art and that. So I was like, okay, I'm good at this. What can I do with it? So I then went on to university. Well, I did sixth form, and then I did a diploma in art foundation. And that was when I decided, okay, well, there was 4 different things I could choose from, like fine art, graphics, 3D, like jewelry making, things like that, and something else, photography, I think. I tried them all. Graphics was the one. I was torn between graphics and fine art, and they said, well, what do you want to do for your uni? And I said, well, I don't know. I said, I don't want to be an artist, because 1, they're usually only rich once they're dead, and 2, like some of the fine art that I was seeing was just awful, like what's it called when it's just like modern and it's just like Tracy Emmett's bed or something, and you're like, to me that's not art.
I don't get like that.
Well, I didn't really get it either, so I was like, I don't really want to be an artist. And she was like, okay, well, choose graphics then. I was like, okay. So that was sort of how I went into it. I didn't really know much about it at the time. So when I got on there was all these other people that had like been doing graphic design stuff for like years, and I'd just been drawing, so I was like, oh, so I was a bit behind really. But I did the 3 years at uni and I really loved it. And then when I got out, I got a job in magazine design, which was really cool. And then throughout my career, I've just sort of moved up and moved on. And then recently, when I realized I couldn't work full time, I left my job where I was designing all sorts, like brochures, websites, stuff, everything. And I thought, right, I'm going to go it alone. So I got enough money saved up to do it myself. And then I thought I've got to, and this is now I've got until like August time. I've got money saved up. And if I've made no money whatsoever, I have to get a part-time job. Which I didn't really want, because I was like, I really want to do it by myself, because being at home is better for me in terms of like my mind and my body and things like that. So, but then I did find that also being at home by myself all the time, I'm quite a talkative person. So I'm just talking to myself all the time, or like there's just me and my 4 walls. So actually, when I saw this job being advertised for part-time graphic design job in Essex, so I was like, oh, I need to go for it, because even though I don't need the money and stuff yet, in a few months' time, I might be desperate for that money, and then I have to just go and get a job at Tesco's or something, which is fine. But for me and my career, being able to get a part-time graphic design job is obviously like so much better. So I've applied for it, went for the interview, I've got it, and I'm just waiting to start for it now. But I'm hoping that, because it is every other day, I think like 3 days a week, I'm hoping that that'll sit well with me in terms of, oh, I really don't feel well today, but it's okay because I'm off tomorrow, so I can lay in. Or if I have a cold, which I always have, oh, it's okay because tomorrow I can just stay on the sofa and have my blanket on and watch Netflix and things like that. So like, I'm hoping that it will give me a bit more freedom. And if I am feeling really great, okay, well, I'll do my 3 days at the office. And then the 2 days I'm here, I can do my illustration and design stuff for me as well. So I'm hoping it'll be good and I can fit everything I need to fit around it. And it'll just be a stable money, which will then help with the stress and anxiety and stuff, paying the bills. So that's good.
So with your graphic designer, what's been your favorite pet project?
At the moment, I've just finished some wedding invites, which are actually really lovely. I drew all the peonies and the flowers all myself with like digitally. And also this is when I first got into like digital illustration was my last job. And I was drawing like how to peg a tent kind of thing. And I had to draw the hands and everything all on the computer with my little tablet and pen. And it was just really fun. And I was like, because as much as I liked illustration and stuff before, I found like a little new style. So now I've like sort of gone and ran with that style and I'm doing a lot more stuff now. So that's probably been, the last month's probably been like my favorite in terms of the work, because I'm just sort of doing things for myself as well. But I did once redesign a whole magazine, which kept the style for a long time, even after I left. So I think that's probably one of the things I'm most proud of, because if it isn't broken, they didn't fix it. So that was good, because they like the whole magazine was just mine from like beginning to end. So that was pretty cool. That's probably one of my favorites. Yeah.
What was I going to say? Do you find using the creative part of your brain helps you a lot with sort of coping with mental health issues and health and just general health issues? Because I know there's been a lot of research and a lot of stuff from the sort of the mental health sector in terms of colouring books for adults and like doing
yes
like that. So I'm just wondering, like being a graphic designer and when you get engrossed into your work, do you find that's almost like a stress relief and an off switch button for your mental health?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was going to mention the colouring in books actually when you said that, because that's for people that just like to sit there and colour, and it sort of switches your brain off from thinking about anything. All you think about is, what colour am I going to do next? And, oh, what does this look like? And it sort of stops your brain from wandering off into thinking about other things. And I do find that, like, I think it's probably why I've always liked drawing as well, because I sort of go into my own little world. Like, when I was younger, my mum used to be like shouting in my ear, like, Amy, dinner's ready. And I just literally wouldn't hear her because I was literally so engrossed in my drawing. And it's the same as now. Being on the computer and designing, you can literally, hours can go by and you don't even know it. And you're like, oh God, is that the time already? Like, because you've just been flying through this design and like being so into it. But I do find the drawing side of things is probably more of, graphic design as well, because I have to think about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it and things like that. But just drawing and letting your hand and your pencil just sort of go is actually really nice. And I think it is quite a good, it's like some people do sports, some people do this, but I was thinking about art therapy actually, and how I could maybe get into that. But for now, I'll stay with where I am. But yeah, it is really good.
What's your go-tos then for days that you're finding that things are struggling? You've already mentioned, like the thought of being able to return home on your part-time work. But what sort of things do you find help you get through those difficult days?
My support system, like my friends, like I said before, like I can talk about diarrhea and everything with them. But like, if I am having a really tough day, even though they don't have Crohn's disease or anything, but they've also had tough times as well. And they know, and I've never we haven't got any secrets or anything. So they know exactly what I'm sort of feeling, because I've told them multiple times and they can help me. And they're like, my friends and family are really supportive. I think they're my boyfriend, so they're all like really good things that I can sort of grab hold on if I'm struggling. I always think having a good cry or a good pamper and a good chick flick, they're always quite good. Just to like switch off. If you're having a really rubbish time, if you're at work and you can go home, like just go. Sometimes you've got to put like, you know, you've got to put yourself first. Like your mental and physical health is a lot more important than getting a spreadsheet done that day or something, you know? So like, I think sometimes you've just got to be a bit selfish, do things. If you're really struggling, try and do things that you know you enjoy. If you're struggling mentally, if you're struggling physically and you're in pain, I like a good hot water bottle and just cozying down and just being lazy, but not lazy, but just comfy, and you know, just surround yourself by nice things.
I think it's a really important thing for people to start realizing, that particularly with having a chronic disease or struggling with mental health problems, is just making sure you remind yourself it's okay to have those days off, and you know, to have that time to unwind. I heard a really good analogy. Again, it's from ironically an Australian, but talking about thinking of yourself as a bucket, and when your bucket is full, you've got love to give, so you can go out and you can provide service to other people. But if you're at a point where your bucket is empty, it doesn't matter how much running around you're doing, you're not going to be able to do anything for anybody because your bucket's empty.
Yeah.
So you need to take that time to refill your bucket.
Yeah, exactly.
For HappyCrohns, what's the main goal or message for those that follow you?
I saw a quote actually yesterday. It said, "Be thankful for what you are today and keep fighting for what you want to be tomorrow." And I saw that and I thought, that's quite a nice little message that I would want, hopefully, HappyCrohns to be telling. Like, you know, yeah, okay, we're having some rubbish times sometimes, but just try and be positive with it. I know but then that's another thing. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'll go on Instagram and I see everyone's like, oh, Crohn's does not define me, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, it defines me sometimes, okay? I am Crohn's disease and I hate it. So, but you know, I do try and be positive, especially now I'm feeling like a lot better in myself and everything. And I hope that just funny, like I just like sharing funny things. Sometimes I'm just honest as well. So if there's a message that I can give anyone, it's just be honest, be true to yourself, enjoy what you're doing and posting or seeing or reading. You know, don't follow people that are going to mess up with your positive thinking and things like that. Like just unfollow the drama and just be kind to yourself, be brave, and just, you know.
I like it. Unfollow the drama. Get rid of the Daily Mail app.
Oh, yes, exactly. God, you don't need that in your life. No.
I think I remember actually that post where you saying, like, getting fed up with everyone saying, like, my diagnosis doesn't define me. Right? And I thought when I read it, I was like, that's a fair point. Like, there's a lot of people just... And it just doesn't give room sometimes. It can make you feel like there isn't room sometimes for you to be annoyed at it or upset at it.
Yeah, and if you're like crying, because I post pictures of myself literally crying as well, which is really like weird for me. Like if I cry, I'm not like, oh my gosh, let me take a picture of this. But like, it's normally the aftermath with like the red puffy face and the tears and the eyes that are just like, whoa. And you just look sort of like a bit like a red elephant. Like, but it's afterwards that I then post that, because I'm like, actually, no, I am having a bad time. And people need to know that it's okay that they're having a bad time as well. So I think that's the thing. Like one of the messages would be like, be honest and be open, because there's always going to be someone there. And like, there's always going to be someone there that's been through what you've been through or are going through it as well. And you can go through it together. So yeah, some of my posts are crazy.
So that kind of brings me to the next point, where I've essentially robbed it off Lewis Howes's podcast, but I call it the 3 truths. So it's your last day, many years from now on Earth, and all the work that HappyCrohns has ever created has disappeared or is somehow lost and no one has access to it. So what 3 truths, i.e. sort of life lessons, would you want to leave for the world to learn?
Oh. Be creative, be funny, well, fun. Don't think you can learn to be funny. Be fun. Be creative. I don't know. I did think about this. I thought long and hard, but like some of these things are like, they seem so profound, and at the moment, like, who am I? I'm just some girl with Crohn's disease. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I've already like sort of covered this as well in terms of like, if nobody knew me whatsoever, I would want them to know that I tried hard. I was creative. I was fun. I liked naps. I liked Netflix, and I like Pepsi Max. Can I have them three? Naps, Netflix, Pepsi Max.
Yeah.
They are my three messages. If anyone, like, if there was a whole new human race and they didn't know anything, and they found my note, and they'd be like, "What does this mean?" And it's naps, Netflix, Pepsi Max. They find them things, and they'll be happy.
Yeah. So self-care, unwind, and then do the things you enjoy.
Yes, there you go. I knew you'd make sense of it. See?
I love it. No, I love it. I think, you know, everything about that is, you know, it's true to yourself, and I think everyone can take something away from that as well. You know,
Yeah, I hope so.
Be fun, be creative,
Yeah.
and just to let
And you can be
remind
creative.
yourself to unwind.
Yeah, and you can be creative in so many different ways as well. Like, it doesn't have to be like art or singing, or, you know, there's drama, and there's just the way you think is sometimes creative as well. Just be crazy. I love it.
I just like to take a moment to acknowledge yourself, Amy, like, and thank you for giving us your creativity and taking those photographs of yourself crying and making people feel the full range of emotions that they will go through, and just making the world realize that that's normal and it's not something to be ashamed of. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. And thanks for like doing this podcast as well, because until it was only when I heard it that I was like, everyone, like, obviously you see it, but when you hear it as well, everyone's going through a similar thing. Like, so it's always really good to have extra awareness and extra support. So thank you.
That's an absolute pleasure. Hey guys, so that was a really good episode. I really thoroughly enjoyed going through the edit and re-listening to that over and over again. And it's really touched on some very pertinent points. And HappyCrohns touched on some of the things that caused her to sort of struggle along her path. You know, looking at her anxiety and depression, linking that back to her Crohn's diagnosis, and all the while being thousands of miles away from her support network over in Australia. And it was really interesting to see how she coped and how she turned all of that around. So some really useful strategies in there, and yeah, it was such a heartwarming story. And again, just that humor that she's got, tongue in cheek. It's such a pleasure just to chat to people like her and other people within the IBD community. So if you really enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell icon. That way you'll get updated every time that we upload. So yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now. Peace.